First up, it looks like Peter Friedrich.
Two weeks ago, when the city of Troy chose to platform and praise the HSS, how could you have known that the HSS is the international wing of the RSS, a quite literally Nazi-inspired paramilitary in India? How could you have known that many HSS members in America were previously RSS members in India? How could you have known that the HSS frequently hosts RSS officials from India to tour and inspect its units in America? How could you have known that the HSS routinely sends its members to attend RSS training camps in India? How could you have known that the RSS promotes Hindu nationalism, believes India should be declared a theocratic Hindu nation where non-Hindus are assimilated or eliminated, and teaches that Indian Christians and Muslims are foreigners, internal threats, and traitors? How could you have known that the RSS founders took direct inspiration from European fascists like Mussolini and Hitler, even praising Nazi treatment of the Jews as a good model to adopt in India? How could you have known that most HSS meetings feature garlanded pictures of these very same fascist-inspired RSS founders? How could you have known that not only did an RSS member assassinate Gandhi, but that the RSS today celebrates Gandhi's assassin? How could you have known that the RSS regularly conducts anti-minority lynchings, assassinations, terrorist bombings, and large-scale pogroms? How could you have known that RSS-affiliated groups throughout India are, at this very moment, rampaging through the streets, attacking and murdering religious minorities while openly chanting slogans calling for their slaughter? How could you have known that the HSS, aside from its commendable nonprofit charitable work, serves as an international propaganda mouthpiece for the RSS and its genocidal Hindu nationalist agenda? How could you have known that the RSS and the HSS do not represent all Hindus? Now that you know, what are you going to do about it? Thank you.
Folks, applause is not allowed in these proceedings. Please understand that, respect the rules of our council chamber. Thank you. Next up is Vijaya Nadar.
India is in deep trouble. If ignored, it can have deadly repercussions not just for India, Asia, Europe, but USA as well. India has been taken over by an extremist authoritarian regime headed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi since May 2014. Attempts are on to cover up the extreme degradation of the country and its democratic institutions under Modi to ensure that the international community as well as the Indian diaspora in the US keep the focus away from all that is wrong in the country. Right-wing Hindu groups in the US supporting Modi are not only infiltrating US politics at every level, including the Congress and the Senate, they are also striving to gain acceptance from the Hindu culture to keep up of the facade of all is well. As a born Hindu myself, living in the US, I feel compelled to reveal the larger game plan of not just the Indian government under Modi, but also its supporters here in the US. Prime Minister Modi is a product of the RSS, a right-wing paramilitary group inspired by the Nazis. The international wing of the RSS, the HSS, and its allies, including the World Hindu Council of America, Hindu American Foundation, Hindu Students' Council, operating in several US universities supposedly to celebrate Hindu culture, are doing exactly the opposite. Modi and his ministers are using Hinduism to spread extreme hate against the minorities, whether it's Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, or Dalits. The hate is being perpetrated to enable his government to get away with mass-scale corruption and looting. 50 million Indians have been pushed into poverty since the COVID crisis, and the Modi government has no answer for them. Modi and his supporters propagate the Hindutva philosophy, which is nothing but saffron terror group not related to Hinduism at all. Modi supporters who have lived in the USA for decades are pushing the radical Hindutva agenda aggressively in every state and city in the US, not endorsed by most Hindus, especially in all Indians, a majority of them Hindus. The US needs to wake up to the prospect of harboring Hindutva without being aware of it. The US needs India to keep a check on countries like China, Pakistan, and even Afghanistan, but a terribly weak, cruel, pompous, arrogant, narcissistic prime minister who's weakening his own country, destroying the progress gained over 70 years in just 7 short years, cannot possibly be anybody's strong ally. God bless America and God bless India. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Masood Ra.
Mr. Mayor and esteemed council members, I stand here as a member of what I call American Indian Muslim community, and also as a representative of an organization called Coalition of Americans for Pluralism in India, CAPI in short. And the Muslim community in India is being, like the speaker before me alluded to, is being presented by a very violent organization's scheme of elimination. And this HSS here in the United States is the subsidiary of RSS in India. And the RSS onslaught against the minorities in India, including Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, and Dalits, is very, very, I would say, alarming. And I'm saddened by learning that this respected organization has platformed and praised HSS in Troy City Council. HSS does not, and I repeat, it does not represent our American values of human rights, justice, and freedom of religions. I pray and hope that this body exercises proper information counseling before making similar proclamations or platforming organizations which have been active in the subcontinent. And with that, I offer our services of CAPI to consult with you on any matters which is related to the organization or the operation of the organizations in U.S. related to the minorities in India. Because, as we say, this is American Coalition for Pluralism in India. And with that, I thank you all to give me an opportunity to talk to you and speak to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. Next up is Shujat Khan.
All right, good evening. Respected Mayor Baker, respected council members, Pastor, for your wonderful prayers, sir, and the essential workers everywhere. What I'm about to say affects this great city of Troy, Michigan, and the multitude of residents in this city that have close family and relatives back in India. I have a simple question for the city council members. Would you all rather be on the side of Mahatma Gandhi and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., or would you rather be on the very side of the killers of Mahatma Gandhi and Reverend King? If you have read history, an assassin from the organization that was highlighted by the speakers before me, the RSS killed Gandhi, the father of the nation of India. HSS happens to be the international wing of RSS. I am not the one to make that claim. It is in the HSS own ideology and according to their stated goals on their national website. So only 20% of the Hindu population in India subscribes to this ideology of racial and religious supremacy. The vast majority of Hindus that I have known growing up in India were very tolerant and inclusive and hardworking and smart, honest, and humble people. I can say the same for my many friends in Troy and throughout Metro Detroit and throughout America. But there is an issue, and the issue is that they remain silent. Silent observers to this injustice being brought upon on Christians and Dalits and Muslims in India. I quote Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., "The ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty of the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people." So I ask the silent majority of my vast peace-loving Hindu brothers in this city, please end your silence. Please voice your concern loud and clear against the spread of hate in India and stand up for the rights of religious minorities in India just as much as you yearn for your minority rights here. Our beloved birthplace of India is headed towards a genocidal disaster of enormous proportions that will cause a ripple effect throughout Asia and the rest of the world. India deserves its place on the world stage, a bright, shining star showing the way to the world. And that cannot happen unless we, me, my community, and my Hindu friends here in Troy and everywhere, that we both speak up forcefully against the hateful ideology of the RSS and the HSS here that is trying to ignite a genocide. The USCIRF, the United States Council on International Religious Freedom, has listed India as a country of particular concern. So let us work together. Thank you. God bless America and Hindustan Zindabad. In advance, I would like to wish happy Dussehra and Diwali to my Hindu friends all over. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Next up is Mohammed Noor.
Good evening, council members. I continue to bring to your attention a very real and relevant consequential issue that is relevant to the lives of many who live in the city of Troy. I am a resident of the city of Troy, a tax-paying member, citizen of this country. And I have relatives in India who on regular basis feel persecuted by the current Modi government, the BJP, and the RSS is just an umbrella organization under which it is. The organization as itself was formed in 1925, and it is a very, very old organization. The HSS that was facilitated here in this council was formed in 1940, and it has been around for a very long time. It is a sister organization and an international wing of RSS. So the Hindu supremacists in India is equivalent to the white supremacists here in the US. You would not encourage that kind of behavior here in America. So when you invite an organization like the HSS, you're inviting and proudly felicitating an organization which is equivalent to the Indian KKK. We would not stand for that. So what does it mean for Troy, for this city council when we do that, is that we put ourselves in a situation, we say that we are okay with that, these kind of organizations, we are okay with their supremacy attitudes, and we have to speak up against that. I prayerfully and respectfully implore the educated, tolerant, and inclusive Hindu community here in Troy and all over US to speak up against organizations like HSS and the RSS because they are literally taking over over the Hindus of this country and behaving as if they are the spokesperson for that religion, which they are not. So thank you again for giving the time, and thanks a lot. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Noor. I regrettably am going to say just a few words, probably against the advice of others up here. But I just want to make a couple things clear about those of you who spoke. I don't think Mr. Friedrich's here anymore. He was very vocal on Twitter. Troy City Council did not take any official actions recognizing any organization or any group. What I did do was post about an experience where some teenagers and some other members of the community came and presented us with friendship bracelets and spoke about oneness and the bond of bringing your city to a community. And yes, my understanding of HSS at the time was that they had done a lot of good work around COVID and had done a lot of charitable acts, and of course I'm going to recognize that and appreciate and support that. I have since learned that no good deed goes unpunished. I certainly am amazed at the lack of information and knowledge I have about the issues going on in India as it relates to RSS, how that plays out with HSS here in Michigan and the city of Troy especially. What I do know is that the city of Troy is very proud of the diversity we have here and the residents that we represent on every level, every cultural, every ethnic group, every religion. And certainly, I don't want my fellow council members to feel like they did nothing wrong. It was my post that got the attention from receiving the bracelet, but I'm not here to elevate or denounce any specific group. That's not appropriate without, trust me, much bigger research department that we don't have. But I will say, I understand that there are much deeper issues related to all this, and I appreciate those of you who came tonight to share some more information. And I will say I will be more careful in the future. Unfortunately, that often leads to pulling back and not recognizing or celebrating anything because of situations like this. But to my fellow council members, I know none of you, I don't think, posted on it. Many of you were there to get bracelets also. But just so the community is clear that we were taking no official action by that, and I just want you to know that. So thank you for coming tonight.